I have a confession that I've been carrying with me for 3 years, one that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. It wasn't the cancer diagnosis that broke me. It was the moment I realized I had already given up. Let me take you back to that hospital room. The one with the beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic that never quite covers the scent of fear. I was sitting there, listening to the doctor say 6 months to live, and the strangest thing happened. Instead of fighting, instead of raging against the dying of the light, I felt relief that it would soon be over. Relief that I wouldn't have to watch my wife try to hide her tears anymore. Relief that I wouldn't have to see the confusion in my children's eyes when they asked why Daddy was always tired. The truth is, cancer doesn't just attack your body, it attacks your soul. It makes you question every decision, every moment, every breath. And in that hospital room, surrounded by people who loved me, I had never felt more alone. The isolation of illness is something they don't prepare you for. It tests not just the physical separation from the world outside those sterile walls. It tests the emotional chasm that grows between you and everyone who still has a future. They talk about plans for next year, for vacations, for retirement, and you're just trying to make it through the next hour without throwing up from the chemo. That's the confession I need to make. I wasn't brave. I wasn't strong. I was terrified and broken and ready to surrender. And if you're watching this right now, if you've ever felt that same crushing weight of hopelessness, if you've ever looked at your own reflection and wondered how much longer you can keep fighting, I need you to type "me too" in the comments below. Not for me, but for you. Because what happened next in my story is proof that even when you've given up on yourself, life hasn't given up on you. And I read every single comment, every "me too," every story of struggle, every moment of pain shared, because 3 years ago, I was exactly where you might be right now. I was the person who thought hope was for other people, for stronger people, for people who deserved it more. What I didn't know, then what I couldn't possibly have understood sitting in that hospital bed, counting down the days until my life would end, was that my salvation wasn't going to come from a doctor or a treatment or a miracle drug. It was going to come from the most unexpected place imaginable, a rusted, forgotten, abandoned 1967 Mustang sitting in my neighbor's garage, covered in dust and memories of better days. But before we get to the car, before we get to the transformation, I need you to understand the depth of the darkness I was in. Because without understanding how far I had fallen, you can't possibly appreciate how high I would eventually rise. You might be looking at this screen right now, watching me talk about a rusted old car, and thinking, why is this dying man wasting what little time he has left on a piece of metal? I get it. It doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me either when my son dragged me out of bed that morning and said, "Dad, either you fix this thing or it's going to the scrapyard." I remember looking at that Mustang, the paint peeling, the tires flat, the interior smelling of mildew and regret, and thinking, this is exactly how I feel. Broken, forgotten, waiting for the end. But then something happened that I still can't fully explain. When I picked up that first wrench, when I felt the cold metal in my hand, when I started trying to loosen a bolt that hadn't moved in decades, I wasn't just working on a car. I was working on myself. The grease that worked its way under my fingernails felt more real than the 4 that had been in my arm for weeks. The sound of metal scraping against metal was more honest than the platitudes people had been feeding me about staying positive. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about cancer. I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about carburetors and timing belts and how to make something broken work again. And in that focus, in that singular purpose of bringing this machine back to life, I found my own will to live returning. Let me be clear about something. This wasn't some magical, instantaneous healing. It was gradual. It was messy. There were days when the pain was so bad I could barely stand. Days when I'd have to stop and rest after just 15 minutes of work. But every time I managed to fix one small thing, when I got a spark plug to fire, when I cleared a clogged fuel line, when I replaced a worn-out gasket, it felt like I was fixing a piece of myself. The car became my metaphor, my therapy, my reason to get out of bed in the morning. And here's what I want you to understand. Purpose is stronger than medicine. When you have a reason to live, your body finds a way to make it happen. The doctors can give you drugs and treatments and procedures, but they can't give you purpose. They can't give you that fire in your belly that makes you want to fight, that makes you determined to see tomorrow. That's something you have to find for yourself. And I'm telling you right now, it's out there. It might not be a car for you. It might be painting, or writing, or gardening, or volunteering, or any one of a million other things. But I need you to think about this. What is the one thing that makes you feel truly, completely alive? What activity makes you lose track of time? What passion makes you forget your problems, even for just a little while? I want you to comment below and tell me what that thing is for you. Not because I'm trying to get engagement, but because I genuinely want to know. I want to see what gives people purpose. I want to create a living document of the things that make life worth living. Because 3 years ago, I had forgotten what made me feel alive. I had let cancer steal that from me. And it wasn't until I found that rusted Mustang that I remembered what it felt like to have a reason to wake up in the morning. So tell me, what's your Mustang? What's the thing that gives you purpose when everything else seems hopeless? Let me make you a promise right now, one that comes from the deepest part of my soul. I can guarantee you that what I am about to share will change how you think about healing forever. This isn't theory. This isn't some feel-good story I read in a book. This is my life. This is what happened when I stopped fighting death and started fighting for life. As the car began to transform, so did I. Every part one restored became a piece of myself I was reclaiming. The engine that hadn't run in 20 years? That was my spirit, dormant and waiting for someone to believe it could run again. The transmission that needed complete rebuilding? That was my ability to move forward in life, stuck in neutral until I put in the work to make it functional. The body that needed sanding, priming, and painting? That was my own physical form, scarred and damaged, but capable of being made beautiful again. But here's the part that still gives me chills. The parallels weren't just metaphorical. They were literal. The week I finally got the engine to turn over for the first time was the same week my blood tests started showing improvement. The day I installed the new carburetor and heard that beautiful roar of life was the day my doctor told me my tumor markers had dropped significantly. The afternoon I put the final coat of paint on the body, that deep, rich blue that seemed to swallow the light. Was the afternoon I got the news that my latest scan showed no evidence of active disease. Now, I'm not saying the car cured my cancer. The doctors would call that medically irresponsible. But I'm saying that the process of restoring that car gave my body and mind the tools they needed to heal themselves. It gave me purpose when I had none. It gave me hope when I had given up. It gave me a reason to fight when I was ready to surrender. And I can guarantee you that if you find your version of that Mustang, if you find the thing that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning, the passion that makes you forget your pain, the purpose that gives meaning to your struggle, your body will respond in ways you can't even imagine. The mind-body connection is real and it's powerful. When you give your brain something to focus on besides suffering, when you give your spirit something to fight for besides survival, your physical self follows. That's not just my story, that's science, that's psychology, that's human nature. And right now, as you're watching this, if this story is giving you even a glimmer of hope, if it's making you think maybe there's a way forward for me too, I need you to do something for me. I need you to smash that like button. Not for the algorithm, not for the views, but as a physical act of commitment to your own healing. As a way of saying, I believe change is possible. As a signal to the universe that you're ready to find your purpose. Let's see how many people we can give hope to today. Let's create a wave of positivity that proves that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone. Because I'm telling you, I F***CK guarantee you that your healing is possible. Your transformation is waiting. Your Mustang is out there, rusted and forgotten, just waiting for you to believe it can run again. If you had told me 3 years ago, sitting in that hospital room counting down the days until my death, that I would be standing here today cancer-free, I would have called you a liar. If you had told me that the key to my survival wouldn't be found in a medical textbook, but in a greasy garage with a rusted old car, I would have thought you were crazy. But here I am, here we are. And the lesson I learned through this entire experience is one I need to share with you, because it applies to every single person watching this, regardless of what you're going through. They told me I was the worst case scenario, terminal, incurable, a statistic, the bottom of the leaderboard when it comes to survival rates. But look at me now. 3 years later, not just surviving, but thriving. The doctors call it medically inexplicable. They shake their heads and use words like spontaneous remission and anomaly. I call it proof. Proof that even when you're at the absolute bottom, when every expert has written you off, when every statistic says it's impossible, you can still rise. You can still fight. You can still win. The car sitting behind me isn't just a restored 1967 Mustang. It's a monument to the human spirit. It's proof that something broken can be made whole again. It's evidence that with enough determination, enough passion, enough purpose, we can overcome anything. And that's why I'm asking you to do something right now that might feel uncomfortable. I'm asking you to share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Not just like it, not just comment on it, but actually share it. Send it to that friend who's struggling with their health. Send it to that family member who's lost hope. Send it to that coworker who's going through a tough time. Because here's the truth. Your share could literally save a life. It could be the message that gives someone the strength to keep fighting for one more day. It could be the story that helps someone find their purpose. It could be the hope that makes the difference between giving up and pushing forward. I know this because 3 years ago, I was ready to give up. I had accepted my death. I had made peace with the end. And if someone had shared a story like this with me back then, if I had seen proof that miracles can happen, that the impossible is possible, that even the worst case scenario can become the greatest comeback story, I would have fought harder. I would have believed sooner. I would have found my purpose faster. So I'm asking you, be that person for someone else. Be the reason they don't give up. Be the proof they need that healing is possible. Share this video. Start a conversation. Create a ripple of hope that spreads far beyond this screen, because the world needs more stories like this. The world needs more proof that even in our darkest moments, light can still break through. The world needs to know that your past doesn't have to define your future, that your diagnosis doesn't have to be your destiny, that your current circumstances don't have to be your final chapter. This car saved my life. This story can save someone else's, and you can be the one who makes that happen. So, what do you say? Are you ready to be part of something bigger than yourself? Are you ready to help me spread this message of hope? The button is right there. The opportunity is now. The life you save could be someone you love, or it could even be your own.